Now the New York Attorney General, who campaigned on going after Trump, says nobody is above the law.
Donald Trump and the other defendants have committed persistent and repeated fraud. Last week, we proved that in our motion for summary judgment. Today, we will prove our other claims. My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law.
Oh, we get that she's hungry. Let's see if she gets to eat. The former president hit back with some scathing words to chew on.
Very simply put, it's a witch hunt. It's a disgrace. We have a corrupt attorney general in this state. You see how she does? This trial was railroaded and fast-tracked. This trial could have been brought years ago, but they waited till I was right in the middle of my campaign. All run by DOJ, which is corrupt in Washington.
Footage was taken ahead of the proceedings, capturing Trump, his attorneys, and prosecutors seated at tables inside the courtroom. Still trying to figure out how the judge didn't know that there were cameras, that many of them in the courtroom, because then moments later, he decided that they weren't allowed to be there. And this moment of the judge taking off his glasses to smile into the cameras. So clearly he knew. And then maybe that wasn't his good side, and he decided to change his mind. So let's talk about the legality of this case. This is a civil case. The judge has already decided that the former president is guilty of fraud. But if the banks got paid, nobody was harmed, nobody was defrauded or any of that, where does Trump stand?
Yeah, that's the point. This was a victimless crime, as you heard the former president say today. Who was the victim here? The banks were paid back in full, sometimes early. So when you're looking at law, you look at precedent. What is the precedent for someone similarly situated to the former president being prosecuted in this manner? When you're an attorney general, you look at that. You know, what's the precedent? Should I bring this case? You have discretion in that matter. Well, we asked the brain room, what are the typical consequences in New York State for inflating asset values? Is what's happening to Trump normal? Their response, while I can't say it definitely has not happened, I am not finding any examples of asset conviction for allegedly inflating the value of real estate assets without a victim. So the question becomes, but for having the last name Trump, would this have happened? I argue no. And in the background here is that Associated Press article. Attorney General Letitia James has a long history of fighting Trump. When she ran after going after Trump. She called him a con man, a carnival barker, and promised to bring light into every dark corner of his real estate dealings. So this, to me, looks like a politically motivated attorney general, and that's not what the American people deserve.
Well, you know what he did shine some light on? What was going to happen on the streets of New York right now. That border crisis that has now hopped itself aboard federal dollars to get to all these blue cities, because you can't believe that Republicans are putting them there, not in these numbers. So here they all have arrived. Well, Trump was right about that. I wonder if along the way, Letitia or anybody else will give him some kudos for that.
Well, I don't think she'll give him kudos for absolutely anything.
Although it's a mitigated disaster.
Absolutely. But, you know, what we're seeing here is a very, very cack-handed political prosecution, as far as I can see. I mean, as you say, this is a victimless crime. Is it unheard of for anyone in New York to inflate assets, claim that the buildings are worth more? I'd have thought it's a little bit more commonplace than some people are admitting at the moment. But the main thing is, what he said there about the witch hunt is going to resonate with millions of people across this country. They can see a case like this, and all the people who wish to bring Trump down, it just amazes me that they are relying on cases like this. Because every time they do this, and he says it's a witch hunt, I think it'll just make him stronger, and particularly stronger with his most fervent base.
Tammy, I don't know if you watched all of the president's comments today, but he came out, he waited patiently for all the reporters to assemble. At one point someone said, "Are you going to speak?" And he says, "Yes, I am." And then he did.
Yes.
And what did you get out of what he said?
I think that I liked his attitude, his tone. We know what he's going to say. We've seen this happen before. This is not out of the blue, so we've got some background, what your concerns are. You know, the issue of legitimacy, how the government is behaving, right? Prosecuting, political opponents. What's interesting, and I think Americans across the board will notice this, New York is a dumpster fire. The city is being destroyed. People's lives are being destroyed. People can't afford food. What is it now with the migrants? 100,000 people living on the streets?
Well over that for a while.
And this is a woman who is accusing Trump of inflating property values. The property values of New York, because of its condition, have plummeted are going to continue to plummet, but also the people that have been employed at all of these places, Trump Tower Triplex, East 57th Street, 7 Springs Estate, Trump Park Avenue, 40 Wall Street, Mar-a-Lago, the Golf Club in Hudson Valley, the National Golf Club in Westchester. So all those people employed, all that money the banks made, all the value of the nature of Trump's brand in the city, and just like everything else, like that tree that was chopped down in England, this famous tree that some vandal chopped down, we still don't quite know why, that had been there and was at Hadrian's Wall, chop, chop, chop. They're chopping everything down in this city and in this country. Trump represents an independent spirit, what entrepreneurism can do for you, what being a business person can do for you. And this message is, we will not only destroy you and put you in jail, we are going to take everything you have. Americans will reject it. There's a reason partly why he's so high in the polls, and this is one of those reasons.
Kennedy, before I go to you, I just want to let everybody know that we are in a 20-minute break inside of the courtroom, and they started this well over an hour ago inside the courtroom, so they're going to take a 20-minute break. If there is any news to come out of that courtroom in that time, we'll certainly report it expeditiously.
That's right. In the meantime, everyone who's on break is watching Outnumbered. And
That's
welcome
correct.
to you, and thank you very much for being here with us.
I like it.
The former president is certainly leaning into this because this is some of the best campaigning that he has, because not only is he speaking to his supporters who have voted for him in the past and who stand by him, but also, independents who maybe have had an audit from the IRS and have felt the power and the weight of the federal government upon them. And they have felt that they are unfairly targeted. And he also knows that he has to defend himself. He's got a gag order in another case. And, this is one of the few venues where he can go out and make his case. But every time he goes before the cameras, people are like, oh, wow, he's competent and he can speak and he's forceful and he's defending himself. Wouldn't it be nice if someone defended the United States? Because you put an angry person in stark contrast with this president, and you see why the polls are neck and neck between the two. My only concern is that he becomes so angry and obsessed with vengeance that if he is president again, that might eclipse the agenda for the betterment of the country.
So that is really interesting that you say, because when you talk with voters, and you and I travel quite a bit, so we meet a lot of people in airports and so on and so forth. When you talk with people, they do have that concern that when he gets into office, that the people, again, may not be the immediate focus right away. Government has to multitask. He's proven he can do that. Do you think that's a legitimate... You know him. You worked for him.
Yeah, I think to your point, Kennedy, it makes a lot of sense, especially as you look forward to the 2024 election. And you put up on your show all the trial dates, all of the campaign stops. This is an X factor. We usually talk about a general election as having an October surprise. This is an election of X factors with legal court dates, with Biden's age. And for the former president, for him to make the argument, yes, defend yourself, yes, make the two-tier justice system argument, I think that resonates with a lot of Americans. But the line he should say over and over again is, we're talking about me, but we should be talking about you. We shouldn't be talking about me. We should be talking about your inflation, your gas prices, your interest rates. If he continually takes it from me, puts it on you, he might be unstoppable.
Well, and just to end with you, Douglas, that not only is that brilliant strategy for him, but it also gets him into a zone and away from where Kennedy is, constantly focusing on there's going to be more and it's negative. Acknowledge it, move on, make the people the focus, and then tout your own policies.
Absolutely. And as Tammy said, you can just do it about a city like this alone. Look at the waste
His
of
city,
time.
by the way.
His city. Look at the waste of time of public officials, highly politicized public officials. And look at as you say, the dumpster in this city, the people on the streets, the homelessness, the people who are clearly very unwell, who roam the streets and the subways all the time. Why can't they ever clean that up? But they can go back and do a historic estimation of property value, apparently.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.